thank you so much. I'm really excited about tonight's experience. So with that, I'm going to transition and pass the ball to Stacy, who's going to jumpstart our panel discussion. Again, thank you so much for being here. And Stacy, take it away.
Thank you so much, Phil. And I want to just put an exclamation point on welcoming everybody. And I know how evening Zoom calls can be, and we are all, I don't know, 5 months, 6 months into this. And so thank you for taking the time. And when Phil asked me to do this, I said, Phil, I'm going to be on vacation. But I can't think of a better organization, a better team than the work that Next Gen men and women are doing. And so I'm so excited to be here tonight. And so I'll introduce our panelists real quick as everybody pops on so we can see their lovely faces. And I'll just say, you know, it was a year ago, the first summit, we were gathered at the gathering spot. And Phil, you'll remember Ryan was there to welcome us all. And maybe some of you here tonight were also there. And I've just been thinking a lot about what a difference a year makes, right? And we've all learned how to pivot. So we'll take some time this evening to really hear from our young people. So much of our work in education is making decisions and talking about how to improve and do things better for our students. And we often forget to include them at the table. And we often forget to ask them and to hear their voices. So I'm excited for us to sit back for a few minutes this evening and hear from some fabulous, smart, beautiful, handsome young people who are going to help us learn and we can grow from them this evening. So, and then of course we also have parent voice here and teacher voice as well. So let me go ahead and introduce everybody. We'll start with Jacques Etienne, who is a teacher at Carver STEAM Academy. I think Mr. Etienne has been teaching close to 7 years, he shared with us. Do you want to wave, Mr. Etienne, so we see you? There you go. We next have Doreen Igiobo, who is a senior at Creekside High School. There she is, and part of the Next Gen Men and Women program. We have Charles Murray, who is also a rising senior. Hey, Charles. And he is at Banneker High School. And then we have Miss Felicia Collins. Hi, Miss Collins, who's joining us, yes, this evening. And she is the mother of a rising sophomore, Talon Collins, who's at South Atlanta High School. And I think that's everybody. So we'll just get started. We wanted to warm up a little bit. I'll give you guys an easy one before we get going. And as Phil mentioned, please, we'll have some portion of time at the end of our sort of planned discussion for everyone here to, if you have some questions, you can put them in the chat box. So Veronica is going to help me with that. But let's start with, as an easy warm up for our panel, I'd like you to think about a song and share that song with us that is your go-to, that gets you happy, gets you in this light mood. And I was thinking about this because these have been such difficult times for all of us. I'm sure there's been a point where you just need to put on some good music. So I'm curious to hear from each of you, just your go-to song that puts a smile on your face. And we'll start with you, Felicia, if you don't mind. Miss Collins, what's your go-to song?
Happy. I can't think of the artist because I'm happy. Come on. Yeah, that one.
I love that song. Yeah. All right, Doreen, what about you?
My go-to song is my favorite song, which is Take Care by Drake, featuring Rihanna.
Okay, nice. Charles?
For me, it would be Dedication by Nipsey Hussle.
Nice. Okay. And then Mr. Etienne?
Anything Afrobeat is what I've been listening to keep me happy.
Yeah, good. Wonderful. Okay, so that was easy. Now we'll move into some more meatier questions. And, you know, when we were thinking about what we wanted to talk about tonight, it was obvious that we could not have this conversation without talking about COVID, Corona, pandemic, where we've all been. And so I want to spend just a little time hearing from you lovely young people and parent and teacher. How has, or what challenges have you faced during this time, during this pandemic, and how has that impacted you regarding the transition to virtual learning and having to be in a virtual space? And so obviously summer has kind of paused, but now we're moving back and it looks like that's going to continue. So we'd love to just talk about that a little bit. What challenges have you had to overcome or face? And I think I'll start this time with Doreen.
Okay, so with the COVID-19 outbreak, we were out of school, so I'm thinking, okay, this is great leisure time for me. So I spent the time while I was out of school, just working on self-care and doing things that make me happy. But then I started realizing the extremity of COVID-19 because I'm originally from Nigeria. So I get calls, they're like, COVID is in Nigeria. So I'm like, okay, so this pandemic is truly global. So I started taking more serious precautions. I was originally heavily quarantined, but after that, I made sure I purchased my mask, and I made sure that I was trying to do as much indoor activities as possible.
And Doreen, let me just follow up. Do you feel that your peers were also taking it seriously, or help me understand how young people in your circle were kind of processing the severity of this?
Well, teenagers, when you hear about a pandemic, something that happened out of nowhere, it doesn't really get taken seriously. So a lot of my peers, even now, still don't understand the extremity of COVID-19. However, I've had a couple friends who, have got COVID-19. I had seen a couple deaths, and I feel like those were, certain eye openers, because it doesn't matter how old you are. At first, they were, really enforcing that young people and elderly people were the ones who, would catch the disease more easily. But then, 17-year-olds and people younger people were catching the disease as well. So I feel like that was an eye opener.
Yeah, wow. Thank you. And Charles, I'm going to come over to you. Challenges, what have you sort of had to come to grips with?
For me personally, it's always been, the discipline aspect. Due to COVID-19, school let out pretty early before, we actually get out of school. So I'm used to the 7 to 4 aspect of school. And, I'm just locked in usually throughout the school day. And the transition from, being home by myself, not having, teachers, to be on my back saying, oh, you need this assignment done, or I need you to study this. It really just, challenged me with responsibilities to learn myself, educate myself, just having the proper discipline to get assignments done. And honestly, I'm grateful for that challenge because it made me a better person at the end of the day. Made me realize, how to make time for myself, make time for school, just make time for things that, are going to benefit me later in life. So most definitely the discipline aspect.
So you had to grow up pretty fast this past spring. And as you move into your senior year, that should come into to benefit you for sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Collins, do you mind sharing from a parent perspective how the virtual learning that has sort of what challenges you faced in your household for your son?
Wow, since COVID-19 struck, it's been very hard because, like the young lady said before, they're out, when they get out of school, they felt like, okay, woo-hoo, we out of school. And my son, it was like, okay, the summer hit early. And I had to explain to him over and over, this is not a break. And a lot of children, from what he was saying, his friends was telling him that those grades wasn't counting. And I had to tell him that if it wasn't gonna count, they wouldn't have gave it to you. So I told him, he eventually got hold to it, and he started doing what he needed to do to finish out the year. But it's hard. Like the young man said, it's hard when you don't have your teachers backing you up, saying you need to do this, you need to do that. And it's been a transformation, really, from school to home. It's really been a transformation.
Yeah, I have two young people at home myself, and I hear you. So everybody faced this. For the little ones, it was how do you keep their attention, because they're not even equipped to handle that. And then for the older ones, how do you keep them motivated, and how do you keep them disciplined? So I hear you. And then I'll end us out with Mr. Etienne, who is on the teaching side of this. Would you share with us some of the challenges from a teacher perspective that virtual learning has presented to you?
It's been challenging because there are, like, motivating the students has been a big challenge, because it seems like as soon as they found out, and I don't know how they found out because I didn't tell my students, but as soon as it was rumored that grades did not count, they sort of checked out. So making phone calls and talking to parents and trying to let them know what was going on, that was challenging as well, because I had to call parents at work and let them know, cue them in and let them know what was going on. So just basically trying to keep them motivated was not easy, but it really helped me see, like, those students who really were passionate about learning. And when I see them, hopefully when things open back up and we're back at school, I can really shout those kids out and really thank them for coming into those Zoom classrooms and still keeping up with their work and still doing what they needed to do. But it's been a process, and then also when you realize that some students, they have siblings. So if they have siblings and they only have one device at home and they're sharing the device, so it became very difficult to keep track of the work and making sure that the students were completing it and all that stuff.
Yeah. So the theme here is that it's just hard for all of us, right? I mean, this is just really unheard of. So thank you for sharing so openly. We'll come back because, as we know, we're gearing up and having to get ready for the fall and what that looks like. But we also, in designing this conversation, knew we could not gather and talk about the other big, things that are happening in our country around racial and social justice and police violence. And so that, on top of being quarantined and where we are, was just another layer that we saw this summer. And so we wanted to take a moment and hear from these young people about that experience specifically. In our city, we have seen so much. So I'd like to start there, and I think I'll start with you, Charles, this time. If you can share, how you are making sense of the racial injustice and the police brutality, and anything you want to talk about that aspect of all that we've experienced.
For me, it was most definitely an eye opener, and I can also say for the world, likewise, that is most definitely an eye opener, especially since we all have time now at home watching TV, being on social media. You just can't ignore it at this point. Black Lives Matter has came a long way from, just the hashtag. You see it all over now. And the fact that now we're, isolated, quarantining, pretty much, like, it's kind of hard to ignore it. Just seeing what's going on in the world is something that you you know, you want to get better with. And over time, people are trying to, you know, make sense of what's happening. But at the same time, you have to educate. And the people, you know, that's like my skin color, we have to educate the people around the world, you know, either is now or never, because now we have social media, we have, you know, different aspects and different people that can actually talk to others who doesn't really understand our situation, and, you know, just educate them on the history that we've been through, because I don't think that a lot of people actually understand what we've been through as people. And from the young generation, such as myself and people younger than me, it's very imperative for us to take the time out to educate ourselves of what's been going on years prior to, you know, us being here on this earth. And at the same time, I know that we have a lot of responsibility as a generation, but then again, we also have to think about it like this, as that we have the power to change that. We have the power to overcome these obstacles that has been, you know, put on us years and years before we could actually be here on this earth. So for me personally, I just think that, you know, this is revolutionary. It's sad to see that, you know, someone or people had to die for us to actually have this conversation, and, you know, for us to actually, you know, make sense of the situation. So for me, it's been something that's, you know, just changing every day. Hopefully we can make sense of it one day.
Thank you, Charles. And I would be remiss if I pulled up a few quotes from John Lewis, who of course we lost last week. And one of the things, he said so many things, but one I pulled was, "We may not have chosen the time, but the time has chosen us." And I think, you know, he was talking, of course, through his life, and yet it does seem like this is a time. This is some special time that this is all going to come about. So thank you, Charles. And Doreen, I'd love to hear your thoughts too on the racial unrest and social justice and how you see yourself in this.
I believe that racial injustice is very unfortunate, and I feel like it is very unfair that even in this day that we're still dealing with something like that. I don't like that history is repeating itself, and I believe that we cannot allow history to repeat itself. We can change the reality, and we must fight for a change. For example, I don't want Black Lives Matter to just be another trend. Now, if you all are familiar with in 2012 when Trayvon Martin, he was shot, you know, that was an extremely big deal. You know, everyone was protesting, everyone, you know, wanted, you know, that situation to be, everyone wanted to bring awareness to that situation, right? That was 8 years ago, right? And in between that time, Black Lives Matter was not really talked about. You know, people were not, you know, really, they weren't voicing their opinions. They weren't using a social media platform to really advocate for what Black Lives Matter really mean. And with the protesting and everything going on, I feel like that is good. I feel like we have to make a change. And if we're going to make a change, I believe that we should do it in the most safe way as possible. And when we consider important figures like Martin Luther King with the Civil Rights Movement, we can make a change by being peaceful.
Thank you. Yes, I love the passion that I hear in your voice. Ms. Collins, would you like to weigh in? You've had a little more in your lifetime. How are you feeling about the social unrest and what we've seen?
You know, as a mother of a Black young man, it's very scary. You know, you see a child going out. I didn't understand it when I was younger because I was one of those, I got to be out there in the crowd. I got to do this. I got to do that. But it was a much different kind of time than it is now. And now when you see the children, I mean, even if you aren't, how can I put it, religious, you have to pray that your children come home. Because when they walk out that door, you just don't know what's going to happen. And I mean, it haven't just started. it's been in my times, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm 53, so I have seen a lot. I've seen a lot, and it's time. To be honest, I see all the, what is that? The like John Lewis, and I can't think of the other man's name. Please forgive me. But
C.T. Vivian, Mr.
yeah,
Vivian.
yes. And I'm seeing everybody leaving now, and you wonder who's going to step up to the plate and do this. It's for this next generation to realize that, okay, it's time to put some of this, because you see children in the street and you be like, oh my God. And then you think, is that my child out there acting like that? You know, you never know, because we're not with them at all times. But I say it's a time for the older group to start explaining to the younger children that they need to explain to them what have went on. I try to teach Talon about the history, things that happened, who it happened to. I can't really explain why. I can only explain what season it was in when it happened. But, you know, it's time for us as adults and older adults to start informing the children so someone else can get in their headset to, come on, it's time for us to step up now, because this group is going. They're gone or they're going. So it's time for them to step up now and realize, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to try to get a unity. You don't like what you always hear or see, and this Black Lives Matter, that's wonderful. It is, because now I was years ago I was posting things on my Facebook, and I just happened to just think about it. Every like memory that come up, it will be like, how can I say it? It'll be like, okay, well, this lady got killed in jail. She got locked up. She got put in jail, and she got killed. This man was selling CDs to try to help his family. He died, you know, choked by the police just because he was a larger sized man. I mean, I just feel like, and also the main point of all this is, because it's more like police brutality, they need to do more with the training of polices, you know, because I work for the school board myself. I'm a bus driver, but we had to take, work with me, I'm sorry, you all, I don't have my words in order, but we had to take, what is the test? I can't think of it, but anyway, you know, you have to take a test and you have to say how you feel about certain things and everything. And, you know, I feel like the police should have to do it too.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. And then I'm going to switch over to our history teacher who, what I think I hear in all this is we are finally we've been there a long time, but having to really reckon with our history of this country and, you know, figuring out how we are going to get through this in a different way. So, Mr. Etienne, I'd be curious from your perspective and where you sit, if you think that this time is different, if you think that this movement and where we are is going to help us really reckon with our past so we can move forward.
I feel like there is something different about this time, but my only fear is that it is becoming commercialized. And I see that as a trend. Like I remember back in 2015, when gay marriage became legal, all of a sudden, all the corporations wanted to, you know, promote rainbows, and it was everywhere. And it almost seems like it's now, after one corporation has come out and said Black Lives Matter, now all of them, they all want to come out, and it does seem very trendy. And I wonder how they're going to really back it up. I wonder how they're really going to show that they really mean what they say. And what does that mean, and what does that look like? And another thing too that is kind of strange to me is it seems like a lot of them had the power to make some changes early on, but it's like as soon as things started getting crazy and hectic, that's when everybody was like, okay, we can make the changes immediately. And like the NFL can release the statement and say, well, yeah, we're sorry, we're wrong for all the things that we've done. You could have done it, you could have been a trendsetter, you could have done it a long time ago, but you didn't want to, or, and it just shows you the power of corporations and, this kind of capitalistic mentality. Now that money might be leaving, let me switch up my views. And, that's something that worries me a lot about, this country, that it shouldn't just always be money that is the main motivator to make changes happen, or, scare people into, feeling a certain type of way.
Thank you. You're right. I mean, it's that moral issue. How do we get people to care with their hearts and be connected to one another? That seems to hit home. So thank you for that. I'm looking at our time. We have just a little bit of more of our sort of contained conversation, and then we'll open it up to let all these wonderful folks who are with us share and ask some questions too. But I do want to, because we overlaid with COVID and pandemic, and then racial unrest and social justice issues and all this that's happening, I do want to talk a little bit about mental health and how you guys are caring for yourselves, because that is so important as we are coping and dealing with so much. So I just want to kind of pop around the group and hear from each of you real quick on some things you're doing to take care. And I think we are used to not taking care of ourselves, and we have to let that be something we take from this experience in time. So Ms. Collins, I'll start with you.
Okay, well, I am right now they don't have class, so I try to spend time with Talon and do things with him, because if you don't, we're all, how can I say it? We're all stuck in the house. It's like a lot of people can go out and a lot of people do go out. But, you have to take, as a parent, you have to take time with your children and see things from their point of view, what they like, what they need, and everything. Me, myself, I might read a little, I listen to a little music, but I have to stop and just take time with him to see what he needs, because this is, well, he'll tell me in a minute. I like, Talon, just go outdoors and get some sun. Go outdoors and get some fresh air. Mom, I'm not going out there. COVID out there. I'm like, okay, I understand. He's fearful. And my thing is love on each other. While we're right there with each other, love on each other. From a parent's point of view, that's how I look at it. Because when you're stuck in a situation, and really, I feel like the city opened up too soon. And I feel like we're going to end up going back to being, restricted from a lot of things again. And I feel like we have to learn to love ourselves, because a lot of this that's going on is because we're so antsy trying to get back out there in it, that now, they've been locked. It's like they've been caged animals. Then when you let them loose, they running wild. So I just say, while you got them at home, love on them.
Love on them. I love that. And then real quick, Doreen and we'll start with Doreen. Mental health and wellness.
I'm going to have to agree with Miss Felicia. I love music. So any chance that I get with free time, I'm listening to music. I feel like music is, therapy. It can solve whether you just want to dance a little bit or if you need some music to cater to the soul. Also, I do take some walks outside sometimes because I do it for a workout for one. And also, I'm tired of being in the house all day. I need some sun.
Yes. Fresh air is amazing what it does to the mind. Charles, real quick.
For me personally, I would have to agree with Ms. Collins as well. I personally read. I don't think that a lot of people see the value in reading my age yet because, they probably may think that it's boring, because we do it all the time in school, which is understandable. But finding something that can, relate to the situation that you're in or relate to, the path that you want to go. I think that reading is very, fundamental, especially. Also, I write, in my spare time to, just to think out loud, just to interact with the things, that may possibly bother me or things that I just want to, elaborate more on because I feel as if that, sometimes we may not be able to feel comfortable talking to people about it. So you might as well just take the time out to get it out your system, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So also I have to agree with Doreen as well. Music is very important as well. It always alters the mood that you're in. I used to always say that music makes the world go round because if you think about it, like how could you imagine life without music? It's for every shape and form, every situation, for every mood. Music is something that can, just back up any situation that you go through. So for me, I try my best to, read, write, tell myself that it's okay that, I'm not being as proactive as I used to be because, of everything going on as of right now. So yeah, those three things are, what helps me out throughout the pandemic.
That's great. Thank you, Charles. And thank y'all for being so open. I think a lot of questions and conversations in the education space are around the social, emotional, and mental piece and how we're going to make sure our students and everyone is thriving and healthy and able, because we've all really been impacted on so many levels, and we have to pay attention to that, because you can't expect a child or a young person to learn if they're not in the right space or mindset to do that. So I know that's a very big topic. So we're going to transition to a couple questions. Veronica's kind enough to help me with some of the ones that have come through. And so one question, since we do have you here, young students, is what can we advise our teachers and our administrators to do to make the virtual learning experience engaging and meaningful? And so we'd love to hear your thoughts as we prepare to try to figure out how to do this for a little while longer. What are some things you might share that could help?
Okay, so last time, closing the second semester, I had my pre-calculus teacher. She did this. It really stood out to me. So she actually recorded videos, since it's math and, it's kind of harder to learn virtually. She recorded videos of herself, like while writing on this software, and she was explaining everything in detail. And she did like constant checkups, like she did Google Teams calls to make sure that we were okay. And she shared her screen with us, reviewing. And I just felt like it was very helpful and needed.
That's great. Charles?
For me, just continue to be proactive. I know that a lot of teachers had to transition from the classrooms to online learning. So for me, I would say, make sure that you're checking up on your students. You never know who may need it. Some people learn faster than other people. So if you take the time out to actually, create a remind, take time to individually take students to make sure that they are okay. I think that's something that, that teachers during this time should be big on, because if you have a connection with your student, then that could, better their learning environment. And I've seen a lot of teachers who actually does this, and you can see the success behind it. So just, elaborate more on the support system. That's all. With that being said, like anything is possible in the classroom, virtual classroom, if you want to say.
Yes, that's so true. Thank you, Charles. Okay, so our next question is, as you know, I am so glad I'm not a school administrator or someone that has to decide how to start the school year, but different districts are coming in and deciding to whether to open up or to have virtual learning. So to all of you, and maybe we'll start with you, Mr. Etienne, if that doesn't put you in an awkward position, but to answer the question, you know, how do you feel about how the decisions that have been made, particularly for APS for you, it's to go virtual, and do you feel like your input and thoughts in the process were solicited? Did people ask you and ask teachers what they wanted?
In the case of APS, our thoughts were definitely considered. Surveys were sent out. I think the thing that bothered me was how political it all became. And that is the thing that kind of unnerved me, because this is not something political. Teachers want to go back to work. We want to. We signed up for this job. We love our jobs. We want to go back to work, but at the same time, we do not want to put our family members in danger. A lot of us live in multi-generational households, and at the end of the day, schools are full of germs. You know, I haven't been, thankfully, I haven't been sick at all this summer. But partially one of the reasons is because I'm not at school. Like, once school opens back up and flu season hits, you know, I can at least count on myself being sick twice or even 3 times during the school year. So I didn't like how quickly it became political, how quickly there was talk of removing funding. And that's an issue to me, because I feel like there is a constant disrespect of educators. You know, we're not paid as much as we should be paid. And even during this pandemic on a national level, you can see that there was no care for teachers. It just seemed like teachers don't want to do their job. They're lazy. And that's far from it.
Mm. Well, thank you, Mr. Etienne, for being so honest with that. And I know it's a very hard decision. This is not easy. So thank you. And then last, Felicia, would you like to, Ms. Collins, excuse me, would you like to share your thoughts on reopening and how were parents' voice? Did you feel like you were heard or asked?
Well, I was asked. And first, I want to say I'm very grateful and thankful for the teachers that my son had, because, like I said, first, he thought it was a game. He thought it was free time. He thought it was time at home, didn't have to do anything. When he didn't do his work, they called me. I try to get a one-on-one basis with the teachers. So I got this before the pandemic hit. And when he got to the point where he didn't want to do his work, he want to talk on the phone or play a game or whatever, and they would call me, then I had to put my parents' shirt on, you know, look, you know, come on, you have to do this. These people are calling me, telling me that you're not doing what you're supposed to do. That's not a factor, you know. So I just, I'm grateful. And I understand what he was saying about, you know, going to work, getting sick. And if he think that school is germy, the bus is worse, because we are all compacted up together. So I know exactly what he said. If I wouldn't get a cold, I would get the flu. If I didn't get the flu, I would have a sinus infection. It was something, you know. So I understand exactly what he's saying. But as a parent, and with the count, the COVID count rising higher and higher, I was looking at news when this meeting started, and they was talking about how high it was. And I'm sorry, as a parent, I don't want my child going back right now, because, I mean, yes, I feel like they need it, but I'm sorry, I need him more than he needs that. So, you know, and they should look at the point of the facts that it is the COVID-19 germs, they spreading, and it's easy to spread. And as children, they're not gonna want to keep those masks on all day, and they're gonna touch and they're gonna rub their eyes. They might put their hand in their mouth, and they're children. So if they got older sisters and brothers, or even their parents who might go out or whatever, get it from someone else, bring it home. This child go to school and don't know they have it, then what? You and put it all over the school again. So no. And that could be deaths that could be prevented. So I don't think they should go back right now.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. Just my screen went blank for a second, but I'm back on. Can you hear me? I just want to thank each of you, Mr. Etienne, Doreen, Charles, Ms. Collins, for your open candor and spending just a little time with us to share. We really are appreciative